Uganda has long been known as the Pearl of Africa for the beauty of its landscape. Uganda has an abundance of natural beauty, snow-capped mountains, volcanic hills rising up from a patchwork of emerald green, Lake Victoria, the source of the River Nile, and the spectacular Kabajala Falls, and a people as warm and open as the African sky. While the beauty of its countryside is stunning, the statistics of poverty in Uganda are overwhelming. Most Ugandans work 2 or 3 jobs and still lack food and water, their most basic needs. A staggering 2.7 million children under the age of 18 are orphans, 1.2 million of them due to AIDS. While these figures are tragic on a scale that is hard to comprehend, they are still not the most difficult facts about Uganda. Widespread poverty combined with a huge population of orphan children creates a staggering reality. More often than not, utterly vulnerable children are left to fight for survival or fall victim to abuse and exploitation. Before we go any further, let's go back a decade to see how this story began. Warning, the following is graphic in nature. In 2003, rebels from the Lord's Resistance Army, also known as the LRA, walked across northern Uganda, raping, pillaging, disfiguring, and murdering with their anti-government agenda. With machetes in hand, they followed their tyrant leader Joseph Kony from village to village, leaving nary mud hut or mango tree not splattered with the innocent blood of their countrymen. You may remember the 2012 campaign, which spawned an international manhunt for Joseph Kony. In a matter of 6 days, over 100 million viewers watched the 2012 half-hour film whose message reached across the U.S., from family living rooms to the Ellen DeGeneres show, and eventually to the White House lawn. Within weeks, however, the campaign lost momentum and amounted to not much more than another good reason for a t-shirt. During the LRA's reign of terror, rebels made young boys murder their parents and in some cases boil and eat them. These traumatized youth were forced to become the next generation of LRA soldiers, and the LRA grew in numbers because of this. Boys as young as 7 were handed machine guns, and on to the next village they went. You can Google Invisible Children, or if that video is too much to watch, try Hollywood's version of the time period in Machine Gun Preacher. Now, all of these heinous atrocities to humanity were all occurring while I was living my happy little life in Iowa, oblivious to the horror occurring on the other side of the planet. I was in a building phase of life, from everything from my career, houses, and family size. So how did these worlds collide? In 2010, I experienced a little heartache of my own, and anyone who's ever been through a divorce can tell you that there are some days you'd like to dig a hole and live in it. The only thing that gets you out of a pity party like this is putting your attention somewhere else, on someone else. Allow me to introduce you to Lazaro Ilangu. He is about 8 years old now and is one of about 150 orphans in a small peasant village called Ogoloi, which is north of the town of Soroti in northern Uganda. My son Tristan and I started sponsoring Lazaro and monthly send $38 so that he can go to school and eat 1 meal a day. We also pray and talk about him in our home daily, and he is no less a member of our family than either one of us. Selfishly, I started sponsoring Lazaro as a distraction from my own misery. Soon, however, this boy found a way into my heart and has changed the course of life forever. In January of 2013, I took an opportunity to use my passport for the first time and fly to Africa to meet this dear boy. He showed me his prized possession. It was a ball he had made out of mud and plastic bags tied together. I hooked him up with some Hawkeye gear, and in August I sent him a real soccer ball to replace the one of mud. I met the other orphans at the care point, and he introduced me to his brothers, sisters, and his mother. His mama, Florence, is 30, she thinks, and shares her humble home with her orphan sister Goretti, her sons Isaac, Lazaro, and Abel, and her daughters Eunice and Esther. Yes, all 7 live in her mud hut. One evening prior to me going to Africa, my son Tristan was complaining about the bed he was sleeping in. I reminded him that his brother Lazaro slept on a floor made of cow dung, and that he, Tristan, should be thankful for his fluffy, comfortable bed. At the time, I didn't know if Lazaro slept on the floor or not, but on this day, there it was. a blue blanket strewn on the floor, the bed that he shared with 2 other children, and slept in every night. My eyes welled, and I fought tears with all my strength as to not embarrass my gracious host. The tour continued, and I was shown their shower, kitchen, and chickens. This was home. They were content here. These Ugandans are literally the poorest of the poor on the planet, but joy and contentment radiated from them. Yet, there was something looming about this visit that I couldn't put my finger on. I didn't dwell on it as to not put a damper on my visit, but with the vision of Lazaro's blue blanket haunting my mind and the fact that my dog slept better than he did, I asked Florence what her greatest need was, so that we might help her where she needed it most. She paused quietly. "Land," she said. I thought to myself, land? Really? I thought she was going to say mattresses, mosquito nets, or maybe a bike so that the kids could get to school. But land? What had I gotten myself into? Florence, a widow, went on to tell us that she is currently cultivating about an acre of land, and if it wasn't for Children's Hope Chest and her children being fed 1 meal a day at the care point, they would be starving to death. She went on to explain that she was landlocked, surrounded on all 3 sides by the brothers of her deceased husband and their families. They were chasing her from the land. Chasing is Africans' nice way of saying evicting. Their threats had escalated recently, and she was confronted and beaten by them because they wanted her and the children gone. Before we go hating the brothers, we must remember that land is everything to these people. Their own children were starving to death, and it literally was a matter of life and death to all involved. Death is everywhere in Africa, and AIDS is still the #1 killer of Africans, along with the very treatable and preventable malaria. Death is a part of daily life in Uganda, and coffins are sold at the marketplace, right next to the pineapple and potatoes. It would have been acceptable to dismiss this woman's request for help because of the social and economical situation of the country, because, quite frankly, everyone is starving and dying. Proverbs 15:25 says, "The Lord tears down the house of the proud, but he protects the property of widows." This ignited the fire that we couldn't ignore, and as we left their home that day, I felt overwhelmed and defeated. My comment to my friends as we drove away was, "I'd love to help, but I can't." To that, Joe responded, "Why can't you?" And the plot thickened. When we returned to the Tikon house in Soroti for the evening, the headlines of the newspaper read, "Family of 9 hacked to death." Their bodies were massacred, then piled in a heap in their home. Who could have done such a thing? The answer? Their own relatives, in need of land to provide for their own families. Sound familiar? It may as well have been Lazaro's picture on the front page. Exhaustion overcame me, and I wept. Now what do you do when you're no bigger than 5'3", have a small voice, and a heart that gets you into situations like this, is weak, yet still has a desire to make a difference? The answer for me? You get backers. As Providence would have it, Joe and Dylan were there. Now to most people these guys look like your run-of-the-mill, ragamuffin mission worker, but these guys have big hearts and the clout to back it up. Not one, but both were with me when I visited Lazaro. Not one, but both read the article. And not one, but both asked if they could help me with this family. Before our team of 10 left the continent a few days later, these guys fronted me the money to give to the village leaders to buy land for Florence and to build her a new home. This, in turn, gave us enough time to return to the States, rally the troops, and raise the money. This also allowed Florence to tell the brother-in-laws that she had an exit strategy and ultimately kept the family out of harm's way. In January of 2015, Modern Day Missionary will once again be reaching out to the poorest of the poor in an effort to turn the table on poverty and sickness in a land where the average life expectancy is only 17. We'd like to introduce you to a boy named Silver. He is one of about 250 orphans in a village called Bukadia. Surrounded by not much else but dirt and sticks, this boy is a genius. With little to no formal education, his ability to transform everyday scrap items into functional electronics is unbelievable. He is seen pictured with a sound system he created out of water jugs, wires, and a car battery. He also has converted a flashlight into a microphone. As if that weren't enough, he now has his own radio station and is transmitting at 98.6 FM Vision Media, Bucadia. If he can accomplish all of this from his primitive mud hut, think of what he's capable of and would benefit from access to an online free education from Khan Academy. His generation and the next would benefit from this education, and together we can bring a future and a hope to the people of this war-torn country. Join us by contributing generously to our Start Some Good fundraising goal and follow our progress at moderndaymissionary.org. Thank you.